What's going on, everybody? Tyler Relph. I'm going to give you some tips, some pointers, and maybe some reasons why your crossover isn't as effective as you want it to be. Okay, some of the things that I'm seeing in the youth basketball level, right, is different setups with their feet. So when we talk about feet, right, you want to talk about setups, right, with your crossover. You have different crossovers, right? We have, I can skip and crossover. So that's more, I want to shift, right? I lift off the right, I punch my right, that's going to shift my defender, and then when I get to this point and I'm through my hips, loading from right to left, now that creates that angle, it drops a foot, where now I can attack that top foot. Now some of the keys within that crossover, okay? First thing is going to be the footwork, okay? So when I bounce, right, and I hit and I skip, I want that defender to shift, okay? So I have to be shifty. So I can't just cross here, right? I have to punch, ball has to go into my pocket. I have to hit this foot first, okay? So a lot of crossovers, what we see, right, is players almost landing with their feet at the same time. If you watch and I land my feet at the same time, there's no shift or there's no real, if you're almost in a mirror, right, looking like I'm going to drive, okay? So I want to hit, right, that right foot first, and now when I hit right foot, my hips, I load through my hips, load, now it looks like I'm driving to my left, okay? That's the first thing. So that's going to be an angle creator, right, with my feet, okay? And it's also going to mirror, and it's going to look like I want to drive left by hitting my feet, right, back foot through the hips to the front foot, right? The next thing, right, is going to be my eyes, okay? So when we teach crossovers, I teach eyes over your knee, okay? So my eyes, if I'm here, and even if I do everything right, if my eyes are dead on you here, right, you're still probably not going to move like I want you to move. I want my eyes to hit, right, as soon as I load through my hips. So I want to hit, and then I want to go eyes over my knee, right? So this is my angle I want to drive. My foot, right, is directed this way. So eyes now are going to go over my knee, okay? So that's going to also sell that crossover, right? The last part, right, is obviously going to be the handle, okay? So we talked about the feet, right? We talked about the shift, right? We talked about looking like I'm driving. We talked about the eyes, okay? And all of these things are going to help your crossover be better. Now the last thing is going to be your handle, okay? So when I cross over, right, I don't want to keep it tight here, okay, right? In certain situations I might, like if I'm coming maybe in a, I'm getting pressured, right, and I want to keep it tight here. Okay, that's a different, we call that an angled cross, right? So if I'm getting pressured, boom, I'm going to go hand to hand, right? I'm going to keep it tight, to get by somebody maybe when they're pressuring, right? Things like that, right? Obviously crosses and splits. This is more ISO situations or mismatches. So I want to now be here. I want the ball to be out. So the ball, right, is going to create more length. Okay, so what I mean by that is the wider I can get with my stance ball, right, the more that defender has to move, which then creates more angles, right, and more movement in my defender, which allows me now, right, to get to spaces I want to get to, right? So if I was to get here and I'm tight like this, my defender doesn't have to move. But if I'm 1 to 2, now my foot hit here, right, I'm wide, the ball's wide, now my defender's forced to move. Now we want to talk about the hand-to-hand cross, right? So what I don't want to do, right, is cross the ball over here, okay? Because it's out of my hands for a long time. I want to try to go hand-to-hand. So I want to almost sweep that cross and then connect the cross to the other hand. So as I hit, I connect as I cross over, right? That way the ball will be in my hands longer. I have more control, right, over the cross. So those are a couple pointers with every crossover that we want, right? We want our footwork tight, right? There's different setups we'll kind of get into right now, right? I want the back foot through my hips, that's my load. I want my eyes to the angle over the knee, okay? I want to shift, right? I want to create that length with my handle, and then I want to hand-to-hand cross, right, with my crossover. Now, with every move that we make, especially in ISO situations, one of the things that you can do is you want to create length, okay, with your movement. So what I mean by that, right, is if I'm maybe here, okay, and I turn the ball. So say, you know, I'm almost right at this elbow area, right, and I turn the ball, okay? When I turn the ball here, first thing I want to think about is where is my spacing at, okay? So this is more of an IQ, an intellectual part, right? Do I have corner, right? So that means I have help here, right? If I'm here, is there a nail defender or a close to nail, maybe other elbow, right? So when I turn the ball here, right, if I was to drive off that turn, right, now I'm forcing help in to kick, or I can get to the rim, or I'm reading the X, right, and then I got to read who's tagging who, right? On this move, though, if I get here and I turn, my defender and most defenders are going to move with the motion that you move, right, a little bit after you do, okay? So if I start going here, my defenders going to start going, okay? So as that motion goes, now I want to hit, right, left foot, right foot. Again, we've talked about it, right? Back foot, through my hips, right, to the front foot, I'm loaded, right, eyes to the angle. If I can drive, perfect, right? If I can step in and shoot, great. Right? Okay, but if they're moving across, now I got that ability to cross over, and when I cross over, what I know is that I have space. So I maybe will cross over, I can shoot a pull-up, right? I can cross over and get into the lane, right? I can do different things based on, right, how I created my angles from an IQ standpoint, seeing defenders, okay, right? And then it's executing the move. The move is to turn, right? The ball floats. I land left, right. So if I was to land here, right, and you pause this frame, right, you would think I was driving to my right. That's what I want that defender to think. Okay, so if you pause the picture, right, as a defender, right, you want them to not know what you're doing. So bang, I'm going. Okay, he's going to drive right. Okay, maybe I will. Maybe you fall back, I'm shooting. Option. Right? Or I hand-to-hand cross over, and now I can get into the lane. So when we talk about not only our crossovers, but we're talking about spacing, a lot of times in basketball at every level, right, what we see is maybe you're here, right, you cross over, right, and it's just help right here, okay, or there's too many people. So think about different ways to maybe, if you do feel like you have an ISO, right, maybe you just tell them cut through, because this is where you want to try to get to, right? But when we're talking about the cross, we turn, right? I create it as your motion goes, right? I'm going to land, and then I want to cross off that. So it's a little different, right, than our skip cross, right, which would be bounce off this foot, right? Hit it again first, right? When we skip, it's hit. So I hit, right? I punch out. Now it's more of a shift, and then I cross over. Okay, this crossover is a turn. Defender goes with the motion, punch the feet like I'm going to drive. Again, eyes over the knees, back foot, shift through the hips, right? Ball is going to be outside my frame to create that length. Defender moves. Now I cross over. Okay, so those are the first two crossovers that we can look at and the detail involved to make your crossover more successful. Okay, now let's talk about one of the most famous crossovers, right, of all time, right? Iverson, right, versus Jordan. In the setup, why it was effective, okay, and everything involved that made Iverson's crossover, right, the best crossover we've ever seen. And then, you know, guys like Jamal Murray, who 6'6", has a little bit more length with the handle, kind of took that from him, and KD and down the line. Right? But the AI part, right, was the setup. Okay, so the setup involved a couple things. One, it was the feet. Okay, so a lot of times when we talk about crossovers, or people talk about crossovers in general, they're always worried about the handle, right? Just because I can move the ball fast doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to get by defenders, right? The footwork is the key, right? The setups are the key. Understanding the angles is the key. So, right, when we talk about the Michael Jordan, right, Allen Iverson, okay, he gets into that little bit of a skip. Okay, so when he's here, he's a setting up, right? He half crosses to a through. Okay, so that shifts Jordan right away. So the great part of this move was he's on an island. Jordan knows, right? Iverson's crossover, that's his most lethal move. Okay, so the setup, he hits him and hits him with a right to left, right? And then as he crosses, Jordan thinks, okay, right, I know it's coming. I'm going to get to that spot. So it's a quick cross through. Okay, off that cross through, Jordan shifts. So now defensively, right, Jordan has that oh shit moment. Okay, so now he's in recovery mode, right, which Iverson knows 1-2. Now, what he does a great job is now he creates the pace, right? Now Jordan starts to try to come back and he punches the feet again and then left, right, and up. But if you watch that move, it's the quickness of the combo setup, right? It's the footwork, but it's his IQ of understanding what does Jordan think I'm about to do? What do I do really well, right? And how can I set this up? Okay, so it's a right skip 1-2, right? He lifts up, punch right, left again, right, left, right, and we've all seen it, right? He's over the top. Okay, so again, it's the footwork, right? It's the quickness of the handle, it's the setup, it's the IQ, it's the understanding of what does that defender think I'm going to do, right? And how can I maybe counter it? You know, so if you're a great shooter, right, and I'm here and I'm going to be a great shooter, what do they think I'm going to do? Right, they think I'm going to shoot, hard closeout, right? Instead of taking a bad rush three, can I attack it, get an easier shot, create for teammates? Okay, so knowing what you do well, knowing what the defense thinks you're going to do, all little IQ things, right, to set that up. But that was the Iverson crossover. It was a quick, tight, right, cross through. We call it the half cross, right? That was the shift to bring him back. He lifts up again, punches again, foot through the hips, eyes to the angle, right? He was great at the length with the basketball and then crossing, right, and rising up over the top. Okay, so that was the Allen Iverson crossover. So there's just different things that can help you with your crossover, make you more effective in game situations. I gave you some keys with the crossover when we talk about hitting the back foot, selling like I'm going to drive, loading through my hips, eyes over my knees to the angle, length of the basketball, creating length, that's going to shift your defender. We also went over some IQ things with the turn, turning the ball into space to where if I do drive, right, I know my situations, I know I'm going into space, right? Too many times we see players, right, just try to drive and bully through people, right? Create space with different techniques and skills. And then, you know, the Iverson crossover, which, you know, I'm old school, but to me that was the best crossover of all time. Go check it out on YouTube, come back, learn it, and let us know what your comments are on all this stuff. What are some of the keys maybe that you look at in your crossover? Any questions you guys have, comment below, and we'll answer them right away.